Okay, I will assume that it is my turn to present. In the interest of time, let's get going. So, hello everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present here today at the West African IGF, albeit virtually. And hopefully, in the coming days, we will have a chance to see each other face to face again. My name is Mukesh Chulani. I'm the Programs Director at the Global Domains Division, Global Domains and Strategy Division now within ICANN. Today, I'm taking the place of a colleague who unfortunately couldn't be here. So full disclosure that Brian Guterman is the lead for this and has done quite a lot of good work in this area. And I am essentially covering for him at a time of emergency. So lending a brother a hand. And the session we have is domain name registrant rights and responsibilities. That's the first set of slides we'll be covering. And then I'll also cover some best practices and tips when it comes to registering and managing domains. And of course, we look forward to hearing from fellow panelists and from the audience about the experiences they've had, similar matters. So our agenda, as I've mentioned, we're going to go through the rights and responsibilities, and then just some best practices in registering and managing domain names, as well as pointing you to some resources that we have within ICANN. So the first thing is that there is strong recognition within ICANN that registrants, essentially individuals, entities that register domain names, are essential to the marketplace, and that is crystallized within the bylaws of ICANN, which you will see here in front of you. So in performing its mission, ICANN must operate in a manner consistent with the bylaws for the benefit of the internet community as a whole. I mean, who else would this be for in the end, right? There's that benefit for the internet community as a whole. And in carrying out its activities must be in conformity with the principles of international law, international convention, applicable local law, and through transparent processes. It's through these commitments outlined in the bylaws that ICANN works to ensure that registrant perspectives are represented. ICANN is committed to employing the multi-stakeholder policy development process. And of course, that includes civil society and end users in order to have that representation of the global public within. And beyond the bylaws, registrant rights are also included within the various agreements that we sign with contracted parties. So one of the contracts that we have is the Registrar Accreditation Agreement. And that is something that an accredited registrar enters into with ICANN. And as part of that contract, the registrars must commit to gauge the pain points of registrants, such as through ICANN development process, which I've mentioned earlier. There have been a number of community-developed policies, which then, once they're developed as a policy, they can be enforced by compliance, ICANN compliance. And here on your screen are a number of those policies, which have a clear mandate, really, to protect registrants. They're created with that registrant in mind. So some of these, for example, the Who Is Data Reminder Policy is to remind registrants that they need to keep their info up to date. That's a very simple requirement. The expired registration recovery policy. Sometimes a registrant needs to recover a domain name if they've forgotten to renew it. And so there are guidelines on how to go about that. There is a transfer policy, which gives registrants the ability to move their registration between registrars, right? So there are ground rules for that as well. And then at the bottom here, you have two rights protection mechanisms. And they are essentially there to protect trademark holders and domain holders alike. So these are some of the policies which you can see that registrars have to abide by in order to maintain their accreditations. So now we turn to some of the best practices, and the first we will cover is essentially the registration of domain names. So when registrants look to register a domain name, it's an open marketplace, obviously, and there's many different companies through which a domain can be registered. ICANN accredits registrars for that purpose. However, those registrars also may in turn have resellers for that service. So the registrar that a registrant chooses essentially will be providing a contract and technical information that makes up that registration. Then the registrar must keep the records of the contact information and submit the technical information to a central directory known as the registry. And the registry provides other computers on the internet with this information, and it becomes necessary to find that the domain, so to send emails or to find the website. And registrants will also be required to enter into a registration contract with a registrar. So that sets forth the terms under which a registration is accepted and maintained. There are very many top-level domains, country code top-level domains, and generic top-level domains through which domain names can be registered. To be clear, the mandate of ICANN only goes as far as the GTLDs, generic top-level domains. It does not extend to the country code top-level domains. So just to be clear, we often get the confusion from registrants about domain names and website names, and why do we call it a domain name? They're really buying a website, and it's often viewed by the end user as a package, but the domain name registration is not the same thing as a website. And while some people assume that the registration means you have a website, it's not always so. And we like to think of the domain name as a street address to receive mail. That is the domain name. It's your street address. It's a unique street address through which you can receive and send packets, essentially. But that doesn't mean there's a building on that address, right? The website, you can view the website as a building. And the domain name is really more like the street address here. So in order to purchase or implement services, that there is a necessity for more than a street address. And so that is this confusion here. The other type of query you always receive is, do they own the domain name? And so the payment for the registration of a domain name should not be viewed as outright ownership or permanent ownership of the domain name. This should be viewed more like a lease. So I've lost my domain name, or I own the domain name, connotes the idea of ownership, and we should be viewing this more like a lease from the registry operator via the registrar or reseller. And registration periods can vary by the registry operator, and that's why it's important to have fair and clear guidelines on how you can acquire, you can modify, you can transfer, you can restore domain names. You cannot buy a domain name forever, but you can continue to renew those domain names for as long as you need. So essentially, it's an acquisition of the rights to register and continue to manage that domain name. So the things to know before registration of a domain name, you'll find, of course, multiple companies offering various types of domain name registration services. So obviously, as with anything, know who you are dealing with. ICANN has accredited a number of companies for the provision of registration services, and there is the ability to deal directly with those ICANN accredited registrars. To be very clear, resellers must comply with the same provisions of the registrar accreditation agreement, but because ICANN does not have a contract with them, the contract is between ICANN and the accredited registrar. The accredited registrar is essentially responsible. They are on the hook for the compliance of their own resellers with the provisions of the RAA, Registrar Accreditation Agreement. Research the registrar's customer service. So does the registrar offer the types of services required, and what type of support do they offer? Is contact information readily accessible? Do they answer the questions speedily? We always encourage registrants to do their due diligence, check ahead of time to obtain this type of information. And of course, read and understand the terms and conditions. The domain name registration business is a global business. It is not necessarily limited by borders. So within different jurisdictions, you have different local laws to comply with. And so it's important to read and understand the terms and conditions prior to accepting them. So it's tempting to speed through it, especially because the font size is probably like a font 4 or a font 6. But before you click I agree, take the time to read what that means. And domain names they're valuable assets. They have services connected to them, or they have somehow there may be an emotional link to a domain name. There may be services to them. There may be businesses tied to them. But irrespective of whether they're registered for $2 or $20,000, whether they're used for online commerce or they're simply communicating with family, friends, they should be managed and treated like a valuable asset. And here are some domain name management best practices. So, of course, keeping contact information up to date at all times so that registrants can receive important notifications. I've already mentioned knowing the terms of the domain name registration. So what are the options? What are the fees for renewal? What is the operating procedure for expired domains renewal? They vary by registrar, so be sure to read and compare. And it's of course, so that renewal takes place with less pain as possible. So mark your calendar. Keep that in mind, and contact your registrar if you're unsure of what the expiry date is. You might also consider auto-renewal. Most registrars offer auto-renewal options for domain name registrations. So if you sign up for the service, make sure that the payment information is up to date. And keep an eye out for renewal reminders that is sent to you. In fact, ICANN policy requires registrars to send 2 renewal reminders. One is approximately a month, and one is approximately a week before expiration. But guess what? Some registrants fail to notice those renewal reminders. So it's important to keep an eye out for them. Take immediate action when you receive the reminders. That's really the sum of the terms of your registration. So if you run into issues when managing your domain name, you can always contact your registrar. You'll be surprised at how often we field tickets within ICANN with that question, who is my registrar? So it's important to know who the entity is through which you register the domain name. And if that is not known to you, so perhaps you've acquired this through a reseller, or maybe through a different entity that's created a website for you and packaged it together with the domain name. Here's a tool through which you can search for your registrar. ICANN, of course, has the global support team. It's globalsupport@icann.org, and then we have a compliance team that have forms on our ICANN website through which this type of non-compliance can be reported. So if there's any assistance or information you wish to provide, or if you feel that your registrar is non-compliant, there are always avenues through which you can escalate to ICANN. And so ICANN, as I mentioned, has recognized that registrants are essential to a robust DNS and to the marketplace. And we always look forward to engaging with community to help registrants find their footing. Essentially, when it comes to ICANN, it's a bit of a confusing world. Many registrants would have never interacted or heard of ICANN before. This program, the Registrant Program, provides educational materials and resources to help understand rights and responsibilities and policies. And of course, that's done with the knowledge that the level of the language that is used must be suitable to a layman. And so there is this program within ICANN which tries to take the complicated language embedded within the contracts and tries to turn that into language which can be more readily consumed. So that is available along with some other resources, like an online course for registrants. And we of course welcome your feedback. We welcome suggestions on how this program, the Registrant Program, can further improve and really represent the public. And so I will close with this slide of soliciting your engagement. Continue, please, to provide us your perspectives. There's the public comment opportunities through the ICANN.org, attending ICANN meetings, these types of webinars, join the policy work and the various community stakeholder groups. We always look forward to engaging. With that, I can end my intervention, and I turn over to the session moderator. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mukesh. I am sure we have some questions in the room. Thank you again for the very useful information you provided. And for your information, we'll make the slide available so that the organizer can share with you. He talked about registrants. He talked about the ICANN accredited registrars. And before we give you the floor for some questions, we have Professor Niquinor. He has very various heads. So now he will be hearing the talking as one of the ICANN accredited registrar. So one of the ICANN accredited registrar. So we would like to hear from him what the registrants they were supposed to do, they are not doing, and in general, share with us the experience of Ghana.com. I'm talking about ICANN accredited registrar again. Those organizations they can register all domain, not only the specific domain name, but they are in position to provide service for various generic top-level domain name. So because of time, we may give like 10 minutes to Professor Niquenor to share with us his inputs on the topic. Professor Niquenor, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yalbi. Is it possible I can share a screen?
Yes, please, Prof.
Thank you very much. I'm Nikweno. I happen to be the chairman of Ghana.com, an internet company based in Ghana, and we are located at East Legon. GDC is one of few registrars accredited in Africa, and we are active in the internet technical community, and I am pleased to share some thoughts on the subject. Ghana.com was founded in 2007, and then it became accredited in 2010. And we, of course, by agreement, follow the registrar accreditation agreement. And in this case, our storefront is located at sahara.net, where additional things are provided to help the person build his house, following Mikesh's very clear explanation. So at the storefront, the person is able to not only find a name that he wants, that means something to him, sentimental to him, he's also able to acquire additional tools, you might say services he needs to build his website. In this case, he gets hosting, and then he may acquire some additional tools that makes his site more robust, such as certificates and so on. In our case, majority of the registrants are in this region as expected, Ghana, West Africa. But we also have a large diaspora that participates in our services. We have also noticed, perhaps because of the name of the storefront, a fair amount of registrants coming from Saudi Arabia. All this to show the global nature of the services that we are required to provide. The dominant registries people are going for are, of course, the usual suspects, in this case, .com, .africa, .net, .org, and so on. it's good to share what view we take regarding the domain name industry. In this case, you can see that there are two main parts. A part that deals with the user side, the demand side, and a part that deals with the supply side. Now, of interest to us is the demand side, which is the registrant side. Now, as it turns out, the registrant also has things he needs to do. In this case, he has to, of course, pay attention to his own legal obligations because he has to, some things may end up in dispute resolution. If his behavior is not appropriate, there will be law enforcement issues that will come after him. So he has to pay attention to them. There are trademarks issues, and you do encounter various forms of maybe discussions around that subject that we have to do. They also do have to address some technical issues which creates problems you'll see later, and these have to do with producing the house and painting it appropriately and making it satisfactory for what they want, and maybe getting some revenue out of it, therefore involving payments or advertisement and so on and so forth. So that's the registrant side. That's where the focus is. But just for us to understand, as registrar, we work with resellers, and then we also work with hosting companies, and we work with people who provide technical services to us, and we also work with certificate authorities, and as expected with the registries themselves. Now, GDC has some support for the rights and responsibilities of the registrants. In this case, we provide total control to the registrant to access and manage his environment. The registrar registrar is responsible for offering the registrant strong authentication and authorization to his account. So things like multi-factor authentication and notifications are important in this scenario. The registrant gets notifications in general on almost anything, and the reminders are sent for the registrant to update its information, which also creates some challenges I'll cite as later on very soon. We send renewals and notifications, we support transfers and restore according to the policies, and we do not share any registrant information with anybody else. Now, registrant has responsibility for securing and managing his credentials, and this is also sometimes an issue. The registrant is responsible for keeping records correct, accurate, okay, so that we can reach them or law enforcement can reach them, whatever the case may be. They are also responsible for keeping their names active, as Nikesh pointed out. So we send renewal notifications, and the registrant is also responsible for keeping his DNS functional. And this is where sometimes he also needs some technical assistance in order to do those things. The challenges typically are in the area of conflict between the webmaster and the real registrant. Because the registrant needs some technical assistance to produce his website, he engages a service of a webmaster who then turns out to become the registrant. So at a later date, when there's disagreement between the webmaster and the registrant, then you find out the registrant's name has been hijacked by the webmaster. So this creates some issues along the way. Registrants often have difficulty in keeping their technical operation, because they have to update the site and make sure that it has the latest, without the bugs of the old versions and so on. And they have to install certificates, they also have to be renewed and so on. So these difficulties sometimes show up in the work of the registrar. And they also have difficulty in keeping their own information about them up to date. Sometimes what happens is that they've moved email addresses and the other one has become defunct. So we are sending notifications, not going anywhere, and we are not able to keep it up to date. There are some cases that we've seen reports of phishing, and when we do, we immediately remove the site as we are supposed to do in best practices. There are some, because we're doing this in a holistic way, so we have to do more than just maybe promoting the names. We do have some few other initiatives. This one slide summarizes all, and then I'll be done. So in our case, the biggest Achilles heel of registrars have been payments. Both to receive the payments for the names acquired, as well as for the houses built on them, the websites to be able to receive payments and so on. So in our environment, we've been forced to develop a good layer structure to serve the websites that people host with us. So, on the purple side, you see the online merchants. Anybody who gets a website automatically can be a merchant, and then he gets some plugins, and the plugins allows him to do payment operations, such as access the different gateways that we have. So if you have connection to the national switching network as GIPS, they will have access. We have EcoBank handling some payments, Visa, credit card, etc., MTN payments, and so on, including the upcoming blockchain things at the lowest layer. And then we create a payment processor form of aggregator that makes available these simple operations that with authorization, the merchants are able to enable. And if they enable that, typically the merchants they're only doing get any, meaning that they want to receive money from anywhere, and then they will be paid according to what the traditional method of payment is. Of course, we ourselves then, provide a portal for these payments people to be able to modify their credentials and have the shop run by itself. They can change their keys routinely and so on and so forth. So this is a way of adding payments to the, domain names and the web hosting services that the merchants have. And I believe that is about it. Of course, we also have a kiosk, which is an autonomous device that it allows people to do cash to virtual services, including, in some cases, acquiring the same domain names and so on and so forth. In conclusion, there are still technical barriers faced by registrants, and these technical barriers lead them into, having relationships that, you might say become difficult for them at a later date. And I think that will be the final message from me. Of course, because of these difficulties that we see with the folks, registrants in this case, these barriers lure them away from domain names, and it's something that we really have to quickly narrow, because they tend to gravitate towards other portals where they simply need the URI and they don't have to manage anything. But that's also not good. And so we really have to make a good effort, a strong effort into making the registrants more technically capable and also get the right kind of support so that they can run their business. Thank you very much for that attention.
Thank you very much, Prof. Nikweno. Unfortunately, we have only 10-minute maximum to close the session, which is very, very interesting. What I'll do is that I'll read few questions. I will read. Sorry for that. I'll read some. I'll read some questions. There are a few questions for Prof. Nee and also for Mukesh. And then I think we'll provide contacts so that other questions can be directed to the speakers. We hope that this session next time could be like for 2 hours, something like that, because we find it very interesting. So during the presentation, we mentioned ICANN accredited registrar, and for information of participants, we have only few ICANN accredited registrars in Africa, and Ghana.com is one of them. So this is for the generic top-level domain mainly. The question I would like the presenters to respond to, what has the role Ghana.com play and still playing in the .gh CCTLD? Can anyone get .gh from Ghana.com? I will let Professor Nee respond to all these questions. We have only other two questions. Is GH CCTLD registration automated or are domain registered manually? The third one, how do Sahara.net manage registrants that supply unreliable details during domain registration? So I will give maybe 2-3 minutes to Prof. Nee to respond because he's going to attend another meeting. Then Mukesh will have also 2 minutes to respond to the other questions. So Prof. Nee, over to you.
Okay, I see a few questions. So why is GH not being promoted by Sahara.net as a local registrar? Okay, GH is currently in transition, so to speak. That's the CCTL, this is a question of CCTL, so normally I could just not answer it, but I want to venture into it. Meaning that there is an act that says that government should establish a name registry. Okay, and we are law abiding, and so we are in discussions with government on how we'll be able to continue to operate the namespace in a stable and secure way. That discussion is not completed, so technically we don't want to, continue bringing the global registrar into.
This meeting is being recorded.
The discussion in a very strong way. But I can assure you that when the transition discussions are concluded, we will continue to operate the same as we have before, in that you can come to, a registrar site and be able to register the names in GA just as you do today. So that's the first one. The other one is, how do we manage, let's say, names which registrants who are supplying complete information? That's really what. Now, what we do is it is reviewed, meaning where submissions are reviewed, and if certain critical things are not there, then your registration will not be pursued. What are the critical things? We like to be able to reach you. At least you have to have a strong email, and we like to make sure that the phone number and the address make sense, in the sense that it is within the region that the person is discussing. We are not going to go and become police and chase to make sure that there's KYC there. We will do the KYC when there's money kind of things. But in this respect, we just like to make sure that we're able to reach you. I think these two perhaps are sufficient. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prof. We really appreciate. So one question for Mukesh. The question is, does ICANN has Registrant Policy or .com TLD that develop the Registrant Policy? And you can also answer any question in the chat I did mention directed to you. Mukesh, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Yalvi. So let me be clear. There is nothing called registrant policy. We have various policies that essentially the policies are generally named based on their function. So, for example, we have a who is data reminder policy, and actually the who is let's say we have very logically named policies. The transfer policy governs the movement of a domain from one accredited registrar to another. What we do have is a registrant program. Unless you are very familiar with the language of contracts, reading these policies will only increase the number of gray hairs you have on your head. So the purpose of the registrant program is to bring these policies and crystallize them in a language that registrants can understand easily. That is what we call a registrant program within ICANN. And what they do is, for example, they create infographics to describe the flow of a renewal of a domain name. They essentially have efforts to simplify, not to turn something simplistic, but to make it more readily understandable for the layperson. And so the .com TLD, I can't speak as to whether they have a separate registrant effort, but the .com TLD must abide by the terms of the registry agreement because they're a registry operator. They must abide by the terms of the registry agreement. And again, within that agreement, there are protections for various registrants. Now, that one it cascades down to the level of the registrar because the registry operator does not directly deal with the registrant. They deal with the registrar. So that there is a cascade of the obligations to registrars, and then a further cascade. If a registrar chooses to sign up a reseller, again, there is a flow down of the requirements which are embedded within the policies, some of which I've named. Do the registrars ensure that registrants accept the registrant policy when registering their domain? So, okay, let's forget that word registrant policy. How do registrars ensure that registrants have accepted all these policies when registering their domain name? Essentially, it's through the acceptance of terms and conditions, right? So a registrar will reserve the right to do X, Y, and Z upon violation of their terms and conditions. And each registrar, based on where they're located, may have different thresholds for that. I don't see anything else directed to me, but I'm happy to answer. There's a question at the bottom.
So much.
Is it difficult or expensive
We have
getting accredited
only
as
3
well?
minutes, but I think it will be not fair if I don't give the microphone for 30 seconds, 2 questions in 30 seconds from participant in the room. If you still have some questions, you just raise your hand. I can take 2 questions, 2 brief questions to Prof. Ni and to Mukesh. Any question in the room? So I think your communication are very clear, and Prof. Ni and Mukesh, we are sorry because of the time constraints. We want to thank all the participants. We want to thank participants in the room and also participants online for their attention. Again, this is one of the workshops at the West Africa IDF 2022 edition, and the full agenda of the event is online, and it will continue up to tomorrow. Again, Prof. Ni and Mukesh, we thank you very much. We thank all the technical people also who are assisting during this West Africa IDF. So with this, we are at the end of the workshop, and thank you so much.
The recording has stopped.
And CEO of the Nigeria Data Protection Bureau, Dr. Vincent Olatunji. The question you have asked is really very important at this stage. And it's important because when we look at the risks that we face as a continent, we face as a sub-region within the continent, and also as individual countries and persons within this ecosystem. We will understand the importance of having data protection, data security as part of our, regulations. If you look at the GDPR itself, where this seems to be the global standard in terms of data protection regulation. Part of the principles you have under data protection regulation is data security. Data security, because we have seen situations whereby data controllers or unscrupulous persons can manipulate the data of, can manipulate the data of their data subjects for ulterior motives, even some for political reasons. We have seen this even in advanced democracies where voters could be manipulated at will to go one way or the other. Also, when you look at the financial implication, we can share our experience from Nigeria. Nigeria, in 2020, there is this attempt by fraudsters. Over 46,000 attempts were made by them, and 41,000 of such attempts were successful, and that was 91% of the time. So if you don't have security as a central measure under your regulation, you continue to have this breach. And then not just security, you try to set the standard. And of course, what is expected of maybe a small enterprise may be a little different from what is expected of a bank or a financial institution that processes very large amounts of data, and of course it warehouses financial assets on behalf of data subjects. So data security is central to our to regulation, to data security, amongst other regulations, amongst other principles of data protection regulation. So I think that succinctly answers the question in terms of why it's important. It's important for national security. It's important for political stability, democratic stability. It's important even to protect your academic record. It's important also to protect your medical record and all that. So also it is important to protect, as we have mentioned before, even your political opinion, as the case may be. So these are the issues that are always in the mind of draftsmen and regulators alike when we are implementing or drafting data protection regulation. Thank you. So please, can you remind me the second question again? I'm sure it's closely related to what you
thank you so much. The intervention was good. First and foremost, the policy question is about, I accept the fact that 70% of West African countries have data protection regulation enacted. So that's the policy question. So the first part of yours was about the reason why.
No, I think, please, your.
You didn't get it. You didn't get me.
Hello?
Can you hear me now?
No, I didn't get you.
Okay, the first part.
Yes, I can
First,
hear you.
I reiterated that the policy question number one was about accepting the fact that most of the countries in West Africa have the regulation in place, and the question attack that you just answered was asking why is data security and privacy central to the recovery of our economy. Now, the second part, which you asked for now, is to what extent are we gone with ensuring online safety, and how can we improve it?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. At the roots of data protection regulation, we also have the online platforms in mind, and as regulators, the best we could do is to regulate. But of course, we always try to give an example of somebody who desires security. And then when you are building your house, you refuse to put doors, you refuse to put windows, and where necessary, maybe you refuse to put a perimeter fence, and only for the region, only because you believe that the government is there to, to provide security. But what you need to do as an individual to secure yourself, you haven't really done that. So what we are telling people is that, look, yes, we are here to, advocate, to protect you, to do all that, but you also have personal responsibility. Why? Because you have critical assets in the online platforms. You have your privacy is your data is even more than oil today, and a lot of people are interested in that. Not just your personal, not just your bio data and all that, all other things that are particular to you, they are out there in the financial, in the cyberspace. So you also need to take personal responsibility. However, at the national level, what we can do is to ensure that there is localization of data. To ensure that there is localization of data, whatever data that we have that is being collected by data controllers, we put mechanisms in place, we put measures in place to ensure that these things, we have them within West Africa. It may be difficult, of course, or rather challenging for individual countries to be able to set up these systems, as it were. But as a community, I think West Africa is about 421 million. We have about 420 million data subjects or citizens, as the case may be. And then you have a member states that is about 15. 15 member states of ECOWAS. Now, if you put all this together, I think we are big enough to be able to say, no, we can host our data within, our territory. And that, to that extent, we can ensure safety. But beyond all that, individuals, these data subjects, also take personal responsibility in terms of what they share in space, in the digital space. Thank you.
That was a very good point, and I like the analogy of either building or renting an apartment, and you don't have doors, or you have doors, you left it open, or you have doors, it has locks, we refuse to lock it, and we are looking for how others will help us to ensure safety. So that's what we do. We come back to you, Mr. Bamboy. Thank you so much for the intervention. As you were making your intervention, we recognize that Dr. Kosi arrived, the call. I would like to welcome you, Dr. Kosi.
Hello, do you hear me? You have interpretation.
Dr.
I will
Kosi.
speak in French. Yes, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Oh.
Hello, do you hear me?
Do
you hear me?
Can you please unmute Dr. Kosi? Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello.
Shadrach.
Hello. Can
Is
you hear
Dr.
me?
Kosi,
Yes,
can you please unmute?
I'm here.
Okay, while we are waiting him to sort out maybe there's some technical challenges, I don't know. Okay, all right. Well, I'd like to come back to Mr. Yo. So let's take a look at the second policy question, which has to do with the popular cliche that is common in the media, and of course, when everyone is speaking about data, it is often referred to as the new oil of the digital era. So, Mr. Yo, you help us to let's discuss this. How do we ensure that we do not create a paradigm that gives room for the exploitation of data by just writing from the first question, from the previous policy question, where we identified, and most of again following what the previous speaker had said, most of our data protection practitioners, providers, experts are from outside the continent. So how do we ensure that we do not create a paradigm that's giving room for the exploitation of data by multinational companies, managing this information of the digital service users within the region? Mr. Yo, please.
Thank you very much for the second question. Quickly, I'll want to focus on three key areas, which I think we can look at just so people don't exploit. If you take a cue from the GDPR, it writes on 7 key principles: lawfulness, fairness, and transparency, purpose limitation, data minimization, accuracy, storage limitation, integrity and confidentiality, and accountability. I think we all need to make sure, especially for stewards like us, MedPharma, where we basically have a lot of data in our possession, we internally make sure we do provide these key principles and these key guidelines in how we are able to use the data that we collect. And we ride on the IBM Linux system, and so far it's proved to be worth it, right? Then I think the other issue also about making sure that your data is encrypted, whichever data that you collect from whether it is your clients or your customers, it's encrypted. Have a backup cloud. Just as we discussed, most of these cloud companies are outside of Africa. So you just need to be able to read in between the lines and make sure that you know what you are signing up for. If it is AWS, if it is IBM, whatever it is, just make sure that you really know what you are signing up for. Then you also need to bear personal responsibility and to protect yourself and the information that you give out. You need to identify and also access management, and also have intrusion detection and prevention software to be able to cue you when some of these things happen. But I think on the broader scale also, as individuals and also as corporates, I think we need to be responsible. What do you share? People travel, and you know where they travel to, you know what food they are eating, you know who they are talking to at any particular time. That's a lot of data you are giving. And if there's a criminal around who wants to do harm to you, you've basically fed him all that he needs to know. So we need to be responsible. I also think we need to protect kids, right? So that people don't take advantage of them and limit their access to the internet. And we need to be careful of what we share. Then I think the last thing is our policies should also limit the expanse and how much data is collected. If we are able to institute some of these things, multinationals will find it difficult to take advantage of the data that we share with them. And also they'll be limited in what they can sell to us and what they can't sell to us. So I think this basically broadly answers the question about how we prevent MNCs from taking advantage of our data.
Well, that's correct. In some academic works, one of the researches that's ongoing, how to protect, how to make sure that data holders or data controllers don't make use of data without the consent of data owners. It's not a conclusive research, but at the point, if we're able to have architecture or platform or models where every data that is available, before you use, transfer, or transact with data, you may likely need to seek the consent or withdrawal of consent of data owner. Until we get to that stage, yes, I also agree with you that everybody must be responsible and you take care of your data on personally before you start holding anybody responsible. Thank you, Mr. Ayo, for your intervention. Dr. Kosi, if you are here, we would like to hear from you before I ask you for the next question. Dr. Kosi, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Finally, thank you. It's good to hear your voice.
good to hear you.
Okay,
Also.
let me follow this. Let me give you a question following what Mr. Yo just said. Yes, there is hardly nothing you can do about the engagement of multinational. However, I'm going to ask you two questions, Dr. Kosi. The first one, how important is the need for domiciliation of data silos, house secretion data? Rather than having, I give you an example of Nigeria, where you have the immigration having data, you have the national ID card, you have mobile phone operators having your data, you want to have driver's license, you have your data, and I'm sure it cuts across almost all West African countries. So we have data that are housed in silos in different places. So from your experience, how important is the need for us to domicile all this on to the economic recovery of West African countries? That's part one. Part two of the question says, what are the necessary strategies that need to be undertaken to fast track the process?
Merci beaucoup. Can I move to French? Because you have interpretation online.
Okay. You can give it to my brother Yovi beside you to be discussing where you are. I can see Yovi beside you. It's good to see you after a long while. COVID has not made us see for a very long time. It's good to see you. Okay, so you can speak in French. We have interpreters. I hope. Unfortunately, for those of us that are connecting online, I don't know if the interpreter will be able to give us the English version of your.
Yes, normally you have two languages online, French and English. It's possible for everybody to understand.
All right, thank you so much. Go ahead, please.
Ok, merci beaucoup. C'est un plaisir d'être dans cette session avec vous. Les données de nos États. Voilà quelque chose de sensible. La plupart de nos États arguent souvent du fait qu'ils n'ont pas le potentiel des techniciens qu'il faut pour mettre en place les infrastructures sensibles comme celles relatives à la donnée publique. Et on fait souvent appel à de grands groupes venus d'Europe, venus d'Amérique, pour nous mettre en place des infrastructures sensibles comme les ressources en lien avec la carte d'identité, le passeport, les ressources du permis, et ainsi de suite. On a un certain nombre de plateformes sensibles comme ça dans nos pays. Mais malheureusement, quand on fait de la vérification de ces données, on se rend compte que pour la plupart du temps, ces données, même si elles existent chez nous, elles sont virtualisées chez nous. Le socle de la donnée est souvent hors de nos espaces. C'est inadmissible. C'est inadmissible parce que on perd de vue le fait que ces données soient essentielles pour des prises de décision stratégiques. Et il est de la responsabilité de nos parlementaires de l'espace CEDEAO de prendre la main. Parce que l'environnement de nos chefs d'État, l'environnement de nos dirigeants politiques est souvent complexifié par le fait qu'ils ont envie de faire l'action publique en gardant à l'esprit le fait de vouloir être reconduit au pouvoir, des trucs comme ça, qui les amène souvent à mitiger la prise de décision stratégique importante et décisive. Ils ont peur, c'est à dessein. Mais les parlementaires, eux, n'ont pas peur. S'ils mettent en place les tests qu'il faut, ça va s'imposer à tout le monde. On les invite, au niveau de notre espace ouest africain, à pouvoir mettre en place des tests régissant l'utilisation des données publiques, d'une part, mais l'utilisation surtout des données à caractère public dans l'espace CEDEAO. Il n'est pas possible, par exemple, que les pays qui soient en GDPR, qui n'autorisent pas qu'on puisse avoir les données de leurs citoyens dans nos espaces, il n'est pas possible qu'eux ils aient les nôtres non plus. Ce n'est pas normal. La réciprocité voudrait que tout pays qui vous empêche d'abriter ces données ne puisse pas abriter les vôtres. Et pour cela, il est important que parlementaires de la CEDEAO et les parlements nationaux puissent échanger sur le fait d'avoir des actes additionnels de la CEDEAO qui régissent les questions relatives aux données personnelles. Il y a des actes qui existent, mais qui ne vont pas très loin. Ces actes-là ne prennent pas en compte l'imposition d'avoir les données en local, notamment les data centers doivent être impérativement disponibles sur l'espace CEDEAO. Si on estime par exemple qu'un pays comme le Bénin ou le Togo n'a pas suffisamment de ressources pour avoir de grands data centers pour abriter ces données, mais on ne peut pas nous dire que tous les pays de la CEDEAO ont le même problème. Ce n'est pas possible. Il y a de grands groupes au Nigeria qui peuvent abriter les data centers pour toute l'Afrique de l'Ouest. Par exemple, on peut décider que les data centers de notre région soient impérativement abrités chez nous. Ça peut se faire en Côte d'Ivoire, ça peut se faire au Sénégal, ainsi de suite. En fonction de l'environnement géopolitique, on peut voir les réagissements qu'il faut faire. Si c'est un grand data center pour l'environnement francophone, un autre pour l'environnement anglophone, et que ces data centers soient interreliés, c'est important et formidable. Il est important pour nous de garder à l'esprit que la législation doit être favorable à la manipulation des données personnelles. Si la législation ne le permet pas, plus rien ne sera possible et chacun se sentira en insécurité même en étant chez lui. Quand tu voyages, j'ai été choqué 2 fois. La première fois en 1900, disons avec précision, en 2010, j'ai été en mission en Suisse et j'allais payer une carte SIM. Le monsieur qui me vendait la carte SIM me dit bonne arrivée. J'ai dit de quoi est-ce que toi tu parles? Il me tourne son écran, je me rends compte qu'il sait à quelle heure je suis arrivé. Déjà à l'aéroport, lui, sur la plateforme de vente de SIM, il sait à quelle heure moi je suis arrivé chez moi. En Suisse, et il sait à quel moment je dois repartir. Mais les données de ce genre sont manipulables par les gens qui sont hors de notre espace à tout moment de cette façon-là. Est-ce que nous, on est capable de faire ça chez nous, dans l'espace CEDEAO? De vérifier un monsieur X ou Y qui quitte la France, les États-Unis, le Canada, qui arrive chez nous, de dire à quel moment il est arrivé? Non. Au jour d'aujourd'hui, nos données ne sont même pas interconnectées entre elles. La police fait son travail dans son coin, les États civils font leurs travaux dans leur coin, les opérateurs GSM, tout ça, chacun fait son travail dans son coin. Non, il faut interconnecter l'ensemble des données pour qu'elles soient dans l'unicité et que le contrôle, la sécurité de ces données soit prise en charge par les instances adéquates. Ça, c'est impératif et nous devons y travailler. Et la loi doit pouvoir nous y aider. Merci beaucoup. I should understand.
Okay. I really want to commend the speaker, the speaker that just finished speaking, Mr. Kosi, Dr. Kosi. Thank you very much for that enlightening submission, sorry. So please, I would like us to treat this question before we move into Q&A. I'll just give each of the speaker 2 minutes 2 minutes to talk about what are the precautionary steps users of digital services could actually take in order to ensure that their data remain secure online. This question will go to Ms. Ariola. Please, in just 2 minutes, can you just give us some precautionary steps? What should be done to ensure that that data remains secure and unexplored by digital those that are receive data. Actually, I'm so sorry for that. Please just come in 2 minutes.
All right, thank you. First and foremost, every user is vulnerable, but there are some precautionary measures we need to take when online. For instance, sites that request for your personal identifiers, you need to be careful over there. You need to watch it. You need to see that you are over a secured network every time you're working. Also, your emails, there are spam mails that come into our various boxes. There are these short links that come. Clicking on them will suspicious and then malicious links that come to you. Clicking on them and then releasing your personal identifiers via those links are quite dangerous. Also, when we browse, we need to also watch out and ensure that most of the sites that we go to have security certificates that will ensure that our browsing or using that service would not be dangerous to us. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Unfortunately, we just lost Mr. Babatunde. Mr. Babatunde, are you still with us? I saw you wanted to leave. Okay, so maybe I'll just throw the same question back to Dr. Kosi. Please, Dr. Kosi, in just 2 minutes, can you please help us to also list out some steps to ensure our safety while online? Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. La question de la donnée personnelle et sa sécurité en ligne est très sensible et complexe. D'abord, il faut qu'on garde à l'esprit qu'il n'y a pas de sécurité totale quand on est en ligne. Ça n'existe pas. Donc, il ne faudrait pas qu'on se crée des paradigmes de moi je suis où je réclame. Non, la sécurité totale n'existe pas. Déjà, quand on veut se connecter, il faut se poser des questions essentielles. Est-ce que l'équipement que je veux utiliser est un équipement public ou un équipement personnel? Est-ce que l'Internet que je veux utiliser est dans l'environnement public ou c'est un Internet spécifique privé? Il faut pouvoir se déterminer. À chaque instant, il faut s'établir soi-même son éducation numérique et respecter les exigences qu'on s'est données. Par exemple, je reçois un mail et le mail se retrouve dans le spam. Raisonnablement, en bon sens, je ne devrais pas y répondre. Mais si je dois me retrouver en train de répondre à un mail qui s'est malencontreusement retrouvé dans mon spam, je dois m'assurer que je suis le bon destinataire et que l'expéditeur est vraiment quelqu'un que je connais et l'information qu'il veut véhiculer était vraiment destinée à ma personne. Si je ne parviens pas à répondre de façon favorable à ce mécanisme-là, il n'est pas utile de pouvoir répondre à ce genre de message. Disons, pour la plupart du temps, aujourd'hui, l'environnement ouest-africain est globalement jeune et la plupart, nous sommes sur les réseaux sociaux. Mais quand on veut se connecter à un réseau social, il nous demande souvent de donner un email pour s'authentifier. Il n'est pas recommandable que l'email que j'utilise pour mes communications de messagerie soit utilisé pour m'authentifier sur des plateformes de ce genre. La pratique voudrait que je crée un email spécifique d'authentification que j'utiliserai toutes les fois que je me connecter à un équipement qui est nouveau, qui est public, ou je veux me connecter à une plateforme spécifique qui nécessite une authentification par email ou par téléphone, ou je veux me connecter à un réseau social qui m'impose pour être membre de fournir une adresse email. Pour tout cela, il faut que l'éducation que je me donne m'amène à utiliser une adresse mail spécifique d'authentification qui est différente de mon adresse mail de communication avec autrui. Il faudrait, dans ce mécanisme-là, s'assurer toutes les fois que de nécessaire que nous appliquons le principe de la double authentification, aussi bien sur les plateformes usuelles que sur les plateformes qui nécessitent de l'octroi ou de la mise à disposition d'un numéro de téléphone ou d'un email. Quand on applique la double authentification, on a la certitude que les informations que nous avons utilisées sur la plateforme là ne seront pas corrompues par autrui en notre corps défendant. C'est important à garder à l'esprit. Merci beaucoup.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Kosi, for that line of thought. Well appreciated. I think majorly awareness, enlightenment, and I think also capacity development is very, very important here. When people are developed in terms of their digital skills, there are some mistakes or error or some avoidable issues online that one can easily take care of. So I think we are actually running out of time, and I want to welcome questions from the participants. I have some questions already in the chat, and I think I'll just read them out. Maybe we could quickly attend to them. I have someone here, Tomslin Samer. He says, in a region where it is difficult to enforce data laws, isn't it potentially dangerous to centralize data like the previous speakers been saying? Doesn't it give room for abuse and unauthorized access? Engineer Ms. Ariola, please, can you please help us to speak more on this? Yeah, like, is it not a potential threat to actually have data centralized in such a situation?
Can I say something?
Yes.
Oui, allô? Je crois que l'utilisateur, celui qui... Can you hear me? Can I move on French?
Let's have Dr. Kosi, then Engineer Ms. Ariola, please. Dr. Kosi, in just 1 minute, please.
Okay, thank you. Je crois qu'il faut se mettre dans un paradigme. Ne regardons pas nos États comme les environnements les plus dangereux. Le danger n'est pas toujours à la maison, il est dehors. La centralisation de l'information est d'abord essentielle pour les prises de décision et pour la prospection. Quand on veut se projeter dans l'avenir, il faut qu'on ait l'ensemble des données nécessaires. Si je ne connais pas la taille de ma population, si je ne peux pas dire le nombre de personnes que j'ai, si je ne peux pas dire le nombre de personnes qui a la possibilité ou non d'avoir accès à Internet chez lui, si je ne peux pas dire le nombre de personnes qui a la possibilité ou non d'avoir accès à l'école, si je ne peux pas dire X, Y, Z, si je ne peux pas le dire, je ne peux pas gouverner. La centralisation de l'information est d'abord utile pour la gouvernance territoriale. C'est d'abord ça essentiel. Mais si nous pensons qu'en centralisant les informations, nos États, comme ils sont habitués à poser des actes de filtrage, ils vont nous filtrer et chercher à voir ce que nous faisons sur la toile et hors de la toile, mais ce n'est pas compliqué. Il faut demander à nos législateurs de mettre en place les outils nécessaires pour empêcher nos décideurs de fouiner dans notre vie privée. La loi doit pouvoir protéger le citoyen dans l'espace CEDEAO. Quel que soit ce qu'il fait sur la toile, la loi doit pouvoir le protéger. La déclaration africaine sur les droits et libertés de l'Internet est assez précise sur ce qu'on peut ou ne peut faire sur la toile, mais aussi pose la limite de ce que le gouvernant, le politique peut faire ou ne pas faire avec les données personnelles de ses citoyens. Nous pouvons adosser cette déclaration-là dans notre espace CEDEAO et en faire usage toutes les fois que cela est nécessaire. Merci.
Thank you very much, Engineer Ola Ariola. Please, can you please come in?
Okay. The most, when data is gathered and centralized, and the proper, that is the essence of the data protection law and its enforcement. It's one of the reasons I advocated earlier on that enacting it as an act of the parliament will give it stronger bite. Additionally, if you do not have this data, then it will be impossible for development in that region, in the region, because these data are being used for developmental purposes, such as in the health sector, and this data also helps the government to provide the basic infrastructure as it relates to the needs of the people. So without this being done, and it will become a challenge. So our advocacy is for data to be gathered by the government and with proper data protection regulations and its enforcement purpose, and the creation of a platform for breach. It means that only authorized persons would have access to this data. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, do we have any other question in the house? I'll just give another 2 to 5 minutes because we started a bit late. Please, any other question in the house, please? Okay, I can see Dr. Jameson Olufue. Please, you can come in, sir.
Okay, greetings, everyone. Want to really congratulate Victor for this workshop and all the panelists spoken graciously, Dr. Kosi, Stephen, Samoa, and Engineer Ola, and of course, the former moderator, yes, Engineer Tola. So thank you so much for all those great interventions. I just want to make a brief comment, not a question per se. Like Dr. Kosi usually emphasize more on government because it is government, that's good. There's a lot our government needs to do, yes, we know, but the private sector too, they have their role. The civil society, they have their role, and the academic community have their role, especially in terms of research, you know, gathering of data. In fact, I think even our countries, we have high institutions. We need to challenge them to focus a number of their researches, you know, in these areas, you know, to gathering information. They should do studies. We should encourage them. So maybe part of the things coming out of this workshop will be to really communicate with the organization like the National Universities Commission, like in Nigeria, you know, to at least help the universities focus on the internet governance, on data protection, on the data security. You know, in these areas, they can focus attention on that. So that it's not only that we're pleading with government to do this, government to do that. Once we have the statistics, we have the information pushed out there, and then it will propel the decision makers, the government, to do what is right. So that's where the academic community comes in. Then we get to the private sector. When it comes to infrastructure, the private sector in West Africa has been doing a lot, like building data centers. At least we have main one, okay? Data center Medallion, the Rack Center, a number of private data centers as well. So it doesn't really cost much to have a private data center, which otherwise your cloud. So, and once we have security of data, like we have the regulation in place, maybe a law, as Engineer Ola mentioned, if we have more stronger instrument, then you see more investment coming in. Existing data center can be upgraded, and there'll be more jobs, because that's what we're looking for. The whole essence of this is to create more opportunities for people, so that once they are empowered, then they can support others to have access to the internet. And then finally, with regard to safety measures, a lot of things has been mentioned. Awareness key, then say capacity development, yes, very good. But we need to use VPN more, virtual private network. A lot of free private virtual private networks are there right now. User can use that, and that will help conceal identity. Because as you move around the internet, there are people crawling and telling you. So when you use VPN, it will help you bypass maybe public connection, or access point, if you cannot just do without using the public access point wherever you may be. Then also we need to have strong internet securities. Okay, we have a number of internet security applications or systems. Like as someone mentioned, the issue of intrusion detection, systems and applications. So there are quite a number of them, maybe like Norton or McAfee and things like that. Make sure this is regularly updated, and we also, ensure that we scan our systems regularly. Okay, to see whether there is any root virus there, or backlog, or keylogger, or backdoor applications. So, and organizations, they need to ensure that they have, say, cybersecurity experts, like maybe NIDA or the bureau, the Data Protection Bureau. They need to have, cybersecurity experts in-house, because they will be able to help mitigate properly, and secure, our data. Okay. In terms of access control measures, access control policy, general policy framework, and reporting, and so on and so forth. So I think this workshop is very relevant, and the great takeaway, it adds value to awareness creation, and it will help, because this data is new oil, as we all said, and data is very critical. So we need to take it as priority, not only government, the private sector, the civil society, the academic community. But instrument of law is very important, beyond regulation. Because if a fellow government institution is at fault, or kind of create some vulnerability, how is that government functionary? How is it penalized? Because we have seen situations whereby government, they don't penalize themselves. Okay, so when there's a law, then that will be making much real for government to also be penalized. Whoever in government, there's a data controller that failed to do his work to be penalized. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jimson Olufuye. We really appreciate you coming up and giving that wonderful intervention. We are actually out of time, and maybe, I don't know if we have any other question in the house before we do a wrap up. Any other question in the house? I deduced from what Dr. Jimson Olufuye said, internet security, we have to take it as a personal affair. We need to be decisive about ensuring that we are safe online. And those are wonderful steps to take when you want to ensure your personal security online. If there are no more questions in the house, I will just use this medium to appreciate all our speakers from Dr. Kosi Anusion, Mr. Babatunde Bamiboye, Mr. Yor Asamoah, and Ms. Ariola Akinyemi, and then also to our chairman who connected earlier, but is currently engaged somewhere else now. Then to the moderator, Mr. Adetola Sobesa. So I really want to appreciate every one of us. Thank you for being part of this session, and all our audience, our participants. Thank you very much for being part of the session. We hope we were able to deduce some facts, some useful tips to being safe online. And I think the output of this session will also be communicated to every one of you, so you could actually further learn more from the session. But thank you very much, as I will be closing the session. Thank you so much for joining. Good afternoon.